time. I'm going to go ahead and get started, even though a few people are still signing in. Thank you everyone for joining our next installment of our business briefing webinar series. Today is Friday, April 2nd, 2021, and yes, we are still talking about COVID. I am recording the webinar today, so we will send a link to the recording as well as the slides around following today's program. We do encourage you to use the chat or the Q&A feature. We have some really awesome panelists with us today who will definitely engage with you in the chat. Can you guys still see my screen, panelists? Yes, okay, thank you. Okay, so let me just jump right in with what we're going to cover today. I'll give a quick update as to what's changed in terms of resources for your business that our office may be able to help you with. Then we'll turn it over to our best friend, Abby, at the Erie County Health Department. We've seen a lot of ramping up with vaccinations, so excited to hear her updates. Then we have Kelleigh Beatty, the project coordinator for Firelands Forward, who will give us an overview of how kind of the workforce landscape has changed here. And then given that, our featured speaker, we're really excited to hear from Dr. Brandal, who will cover how we can be sure to continue to value our employees in this competitive landscape. So we're really excited to hear from all these guests. So I'll just jump right in with some of the updates that our office thinks that you all as business owners and leaders need to know. Big reminder over here on the right side of your screen, we do have thousands of masks still available for free for you to use in your business for yourself, your staff, your patrons. So please contact us if you would like an allotment. We're more than happy to drop off. And then a couple other things recovery relief wise, we do still have a local minority business recovery grant. So if you are a minority business owner, please visit our website there to sign up for that. You've got the rest of the month to apply for that. And the biggest thing to keep track of in terms of federal government right now is these SBA programs. So the latest round of federal relief has not only expanded and improved existing programs, but also added something new, and the much needed Restaurant Revitalization Fund. So there's no opening date announced yet for this, but the target is mid-April. So we really encourage everyone to track the SBA website, track communication from our office if you're a restaurant or work with restaurants, because this is a huge pot of money, and they do have a specific set aside for restaurants with under 500,000 in gross receipts. So we're really hoping that this will be equitable and we'll get a lot of this money to our community. It seems like it's going to be a little bit easier and less cumbersome to apply for than other programs like the Paycheck Protection Program, and what you can use the money on is a little more flexible. So we're really looking forward to that fund opening up. We will let you know as soon as we hear anything about an opening date. The PPP deadline has been extended. So again, if you haven't been in touch with your banker about these programs, please do. And finally, another long-awaited one, the Shuttered Venues Operators Grant is opening April 8th, and that's for a very specific industry. If you think you might qualify, reach out to us and we can help you figure that out. Kind of new to us, so don't have a ton of information on this, but we would love to work with you and the health department and figure this out as we go. The Ohio Department of Health did announce that local vaccine providers will be able to start using some of their vaccine allocations to do employer-hosted programs. So that will be able to start possibly as soon as April 12th. So again, this is new news, but we would love to work with you and your company if you want to set something like that up. And then finally, not COVID specific, but just a reminder for easy to access resources for your business. The Lieutenant Governor's program Tech Cred did just reopen yesterday. This is another easy application to get grant funding reimbursement for training your employees. So those are the big updates from our office. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can turn it over to Abby Schwanger from the health department. If you have any questions on those programs I just mentioned, you can chat them in or email me after. Abby, I will hand it over to you.
Oh, so it says that we've disabled screen sharing, and that's totally fine. I can just go through my my information quickly. So again, my name is Abby and I'm with the Erie County Health Department. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about the numbers. As of April 2nd, so today we do have 7,640 total cases in Erie County. We are up about 89 cases from last week. We do not have any new deaths this week. We're still holding fast at 207 deaths in Erie County. And one thing that I mentioned, we've seen 89 new cases in the past week. That has increased a little bit. So I just, everybody please be aware of that, and please, just stay the course. I know that we're starting to really expand vaccination. We have a lot of people that are becoming eligible now and getting a lot more vaccines into the area. So just make sure that you still, we're all tired of it, but keep wearing those masks, please. Keep encouraging your employees and your staff to continue wearing masks and practice social distancing until we can all get vaccinated and get to a point where we can start loosening up a little bit. So we had an increase the week before, if you remember, 74 cases in the week, and then we're up 89 cases this past week. So it's just something to keep an eye on. We're not anywhere near where we were back in November, December, January, where we were seeing easily 100 cases a day. And so, we're doing okay. There's no reason to get down, but we need to just make sure that we stay alert and aware of what is going on. As far as vaccines in Erie County overall, we have administered 20,848 doses to Erie County residents. Those are the number of residents who've received at least one dose of the vaccine. So that's about 32% of the population. So we're at about a third of the population has received at least one dose. And that is actually, again, a little bit greater than overall Ohio as a whole. So Ohio is at 29%, we're at 32%. And then the number of residents who are fully vaccinated, we are, as of today, 14,862 residents fully vaccinated. That's about 20%. So 1/5 of our population is fully vaccinated. So that's really great news. Comparing that to Ohio is at about 17%. So that's really, really great. We, in just the Erie County Health Department, administered 1,162 vaccines last week. So that's pretty good. We're pretty proud of that. We're going to continue ramping that up. We're going to have more and more vaccines available. Speaking of that, now everybody is eligible. Anybody 16 and older is eligible to receive the vaccine. So please go and get it. Schedule your appointment. We have appointments available. Please share with your teams. Go to coviderieohio.com and you can click on there and you can schedule your appointment right away. We have appointments available at 3 different locations. So the Erie County Community Health Center, at the Cedar Point Sports Center, and also at Firelands Regional Medical Center. So you can schedule vaccine appointments at any 3 of those locations by going to coviderieohio.com and schedule those appointments right away. Again, anybody 16 and older is eligible. So go ahead and get those scheduled. We do have appointments available next week. So if you want to get in next week, go ahead and do that. And then obviously there are several other, pharmacies and different places that are also administering vaccines. So if none of those times work for you, get somewhere else. Encourage your staff to get somewhere and get vaccinated. And that is all I have for you today. And I kept it in 5 minutes.
Thanks, Abby. I'll pause there for a second. Does anyone have questions to chat in or use the Q&A for Abby? I know this is all new. We've been waiting and waiting for it. And now all of a sudden it's all here and open. So I know there might still be some questions. Is there anything for this 16 to 18 population they have to do to schedule specifically on the COVID Erie Ohio site?
No, they put in their age and their date of birth, and so we obviously can tell when that comes through, if somebody who is 16 or 17 years old, that they need to receive the Pfizer vaccine, because that's the only one that is approved for that age range, and we keep track of that. But other than that, just give us their information and we'll get them scheduled.
Great, thank you. I did chat in that website, and we'll send it after as well. And if you think of anything for Abby as we go on, you can still chat it in.
Thank you.
Let's see, I did just get one pop up. Do you see any relief of the required daily health assessment for employees?
So that was a recommendation. It was not an order from the governor. And so when you feel it's appropriate to discontinue that for your business, your organization, you can discontinue that at any time. Again, it was not a requirement.
Appreciate that. Thank you. We've seen a lot of businesses considering how long they want to do that, and what kind of position that puts them in if they discontinue too early and want to restart. So something to really consider, the optics, not only the logistics, but also the optics and the risk of if they have to restart. So
yeah, I think also definitely there are some concerns, and consider your vaccination rate. If you are able to do some sort of like confidential survey and you can kind of gauge how many of your employees are vaccinated, that would be a really important thing to know before you make that decision. Here at the health department, we did just as of last week discontinue doing those, but we're nearly 100% vaccinated. So that was, something that really played into that decision.
Great tip. Thank you. Okay, I will turn it over now to Kelleigh. Like I said, Kelleigh is the project coordinator for Firelands Forward. She recently graduated with her master's in public administration, but she has been in our area working with our office, getting to know Erie County for the last couple of years. So we're really excited to have her on board, and I will turn it over to you now, Kelleigh.
Great, thank you, Sarah. So like she said, I'm the project coordinator for Firelands Forward. The other part of our little group working on workforce is Alex Jones, who is also on this call. So I'm sure he'd be available to answer questions. If anyone has some questions, just go ahead and put them in the Q&A or the chat, and Alex can respond to those. So we are essentially Ecadec's in-house workforce team, but we also serve the entire Firelands region, so our surrounding counties as well. Today, I'm going to be talking about one of the lesser discussed aspects of our workforce and economy, and that is the labor force. So the labor force number for a county includes all working age adults who are currently employed or considered actively looking for a job. So this includes everyone receiving unemployment insurance. So this is different, however, than the unemployment rate. It's one of the statistics that goes into the rate, but it can sometimes tell a more nuanced story. So the number behind the unemployment rate, what exactly do I mean here? The unemployment rate is calculated using the labor force rate and the number of people on the unemployment rolls. Essentially, when the labor force rate dips, you can end up with an artificially low unemployment rate. You're dividing a smaller number. So on this graph, you can see the labor force number over the last year for Erie County, and the straight line is the trend line or moving average. You can see a change of about 2,000 individuals. We see an even bigger change if we look back into late 2019. We're missing about 3,300 people from our labor force. So this can be understood as a pre-pandemic trend that's only been exacerbated by the pandemic. So in terms of employment, there's both a challenge and opportunity here. So these people can be hard to find. They're not counted in the official rolls because, like I said, they're not on the unemployment rolls. They're kind of just not captured anywhere. Many have barriers to having a standard 9-to-5 job, like health concerns or caretaking responsibilities, which is part of the reason why this trend has been exacerbated by the pandemic. It's brought those health concerns into stark relief, and with schools taking different forms this year, it's also put a bigger focus on caretaking responsibilities. So many of these people are still seeking or open to jobs if they have the chance. which brings us to the possibility and opportunity side of this. These are gettable people with flexibility in scheduling, non-traditional benefits, and connections to workforce supports. They can make the transition back into the workforce. So if this sounds like a population that might be right for positions at your organization or organizations that you work with, since we know, drive anywhere you see help wanted signs, we can help. Let us know. We can help in many ways, from thinking outside the box for candidate pools to onboarding strategy for these kinds of individuals, to getting you some training dollars like tech cred that Sarah mentioned before, and providers for training. With this segment of the population, strong personal connection and commitment is so key to enticing them to both re-enter the workforce and to stay. So if you'd like to talk with Alex and I, our workforce team, about any of this, our contact info is on the screen, and we will also put it into the chat. We don't have any questions there. For a real expert on making that strong personal connection, I have the honor of introducing our keynote speaker today, who is Kitty Brandal. Dr. Kitty Brandal is the president of Corporate Compass Training. She lives in Sandusky, Ohio. Kitty specializes in emotional intelligence and leadership development. She works with over 40 companies in various industries on action-based human capital development initiatives, such as teamwork, diversity, change management, employee engagement, and many other professional development topics. She served for 15 years in the United States Navy and is an award-winning speaker with Toastmasters International. She was a leadership trainer for US Navy and Marine Corps personnel, and she holds a PhD in organizational management and leadership. Although Kitty is an evidence-based speaker by trade, she also enjoys stand-up comedy. She has performed several times at the Improv Comedy Club in Cleveland, Ohio. Please help me welcome Kitty Brandal to discuss employee engagement and retention.
Thank you, Kelleigh. All right. Well, thank you so much. Can you hear me, Kelleigh? Excellent. All right. Well, thank you to the Erie County Economic Development Team and also to Firelands Forward for putting this together. I think it's very important. And quite honestly, those groups, that team has been working extremely hard even before the pandemic. Way before that even started, this particular group hit the ground running, and they have been working so hard for Erie County way before the pandemic even started. So, ladies and gentlemen, the world is changing, and I'm not talking about the past year. Pre-pandemic is what I'm talking about. The world is changing, and leaders need to change with it. It's evolutionary. We continue to evolve as human beings and as business leaders. So I would like somebody right now to go ahead and unmute yourself and tell me what you think I mean by that. The world is changing and leaders need to change with it. Who wants to take that? Anybody? Don't everybody jump at once now. Oh, Sarah, you have to unmute people.
Okay, Larry, you're unmuted.
Oh, good, Larry. Let's hear from you.
He raised his hand.
Hi, Katie. Good
Hi,
to see you
Larry.
again. Yeah, so we were forced to have our employees working from home, mostly from home for mostly a year. And so now that, we're starting to come out of this a little bit, and because of our financial situation in our organization, we're going to be able to, get back to full-time employment. Things have changed in how these people have been working. So we have to try to transition back to some sense of, okay, now we're back. But not everybody's mentally ready to make that jump. So that's one of the things that we are, searching for how we're going to, manage that.
Right. Oh, and somebody says the workforce has become extremely multi-generational. Boy, is that ever the truth. I had to build a whole workshop. It's called Generation Motivation just to address that, Pete. because that's very true. And this has been going on for a long time. Now, Larry, your team is very agile. Okay, they really are. They've had to do a lot over the past several years. We haven't always been the mecca of hospitality, right? There was a time when we were very much in the realm of manufacturing. So you guys have had to, that's been a change in our geographic location. So the world is changing, leaders. And I'm assuming that I have a lot of leaders and managers on the call today. I refer to managers as coaches because I think we need to be coaching in the workforce. So coaches, you know this to be true, right? This keeps evolving. So it has been changing. So we're going to dive in. I'm going to move a little bit past employee appreciation and get into more of the engagement side so that we can work on retention. We don't have a lot of time today, coaches, so put on your mental track shoes. We're going for a sprint. Okay, so I know Sarah said we're talking about the pandemic. I'm going to ask you to take that mud and muck from the pandemic and set it aside. Okay, just for the next few minutes while we're talking. Because the first thing that I'd like you to do, coaches, is to flip your script. What do I mean by that? I mean, here's the thing when it comes to employee engagement, and I work with a lot of companies. I have almost 50 companies on my roster that I work with. And I have a lot of people saying, Kitty, oh, it's the pandemic. That's why we can't retain employees. We can't get anybody to knock on the door with their resume because of the pandemic. Ladies and gentlemen, we were having a war on talent before the pandemic. Do you remember that? Before last year? I know that Erie County Economic Development remembers it because they've been working on this for a very long time. I know Alex and his team remembers it because this is what they do. We have had this war on talent and a problem with this for a long time. Now, here's what I'm hearing. We're getting involved in what I call a stuck story. Have you ever heard of that? I think there's even a book written on it. It's a stuck story. We have a story about the pandemic and it's stuck in the past. And we're having a hard time moving past this because you see, if we don't own the problem, we can't fix the problem. If we keep blaming it on the pandemic, we don't own it, we can't fix it. Right? We have to own something to fix something. If we take this retention, employee engagement issue and blame it on this, then we can't fix it. So we need to change our language is all I'm saying. I'm just asking you to please be open to this. Here's another thing that I keep hearing. Kitty, people don't want to work. Nobody wants to work. Nobody wants to work because they're at home collecting their unemployment. Ladies and gentlemen, if there are people at home who don't want to work, but want to collect money anyway, guess what? Those are not your people. They weren't your people anyway. Why would you want to hire somebody who wants to collect a paycheck, but doesn't want to work? Guess what, my friends? If they come to work for you, they're going to keep collecting a paycheck, but they're going to be your disengaged employees. You don't want those employees. Our companies in Erie County, you're better than that. Those aren't your people. Those are the people, when you do hire them, they're a warm body to get product out the door, but they become your pot stirrers. You ever heard of a pot stir? And if a pot stir is not managed, right, we just ignore them because we avoid the conflict, they become what I call your corporate psychopath. You know, those corporate psychopaths who are undermining everything behind the scenes. Right? They're also those grumpy, negative contagions. They're spreading negativity like wildfire throughout your organization. And you know what? That's hard to rein in. So if there are people sitting at home collecting money and don't want to work, I promise you, they're not your people anyway. So let's not use language and blame it on that either. There's a whole other reason for this. And coaches, I'm going to ask you to look within and look within yourselves. Okay, because if we don't take this on as our problem, then there's no way that we can have a solution. All right, so let's work past blaming our retention issues and the fact we can't get employees on the pandemic so we can really dive into what we need to do. Now, I'm going to give you a couple reasons of things of what not to do to retain and engage employees, and then a couple of things of what we can do. All right, there's way more to this. I have 2 whole workshops built on this alone. So I'm just going to give you sort of some nuts and bolts here. Now, first, you've heard the term, employees don't leave companies, they leave their leaders. Okay, I can buy into that, but it goes much deeper than that. It might surprise you why your A-level employees leave. Have you ever been surprised when your A-level employee hands in their resignation? Oh my gosh, you can't believe that person is leaving you. They're your A-level employee. Here's why your A-level employees tend to, in general, across the population, what the evidence says, they leave because of your C employees. They leave because of your C employees. Now, does that trickle back to leadership? Of course it does. If we're not managing our C-level employees, now I'm talking about not your C-suite here. I'm not talking about your CFOs, your CEO, your COO. I'm talking about from A-level employee really engaged to your C-level who's not engaged, but they're just a warm body there. These people here know who your C-level employees are, even if you don't. And here's what we do. We tend to dump on our top talent. We tend to burn them out. And when you do employee appraisals, they're appraised about the same. It's called central tendency. It's a mistake when we go to appraise people. So believe it or not, a lot of your A-level people, when they leave, they're leaving because of your C's. Okay, these are your I call them your crunchy people, right? Anybody who's been to my workshops know that I talk about being crunchy. These are your people who are grumpy all the time, cranky all the time. Have you ever worked with someone who comes into work and, my goodness, I'm mad about this. My manager did this. I'm complaining about this. They're crunchy. Okay, so crunchy people tend to be a contagion for your A-levels, and they don't want to deal with it anymore. So that's something that will not retain people. All right. The other thing that doesn't retain, pizza, ice cream, food. I had a manager tell me, Kitty, I don't know why people are leaving. I think we have a great company. We have pizza parties every Friday. Managers have ice cream socials all the time. We have potlucks constantly. I said, well, they're leaving because they're gaining weight, for crying out loud, right? Food increases the dopamine in our reward center in our brain. It makes us happy, but it's fleeting, right? Emotions are fleeting. Emotions pass by quickly. Actions last, but emotions pass by very quickly. I understand that people love to have this. Don't stop doing it. It creates happiness. It does not increase engagement and retention in the workplace. How many of you believe that you can throw money at every problem? Oh, I have clients who are throwing money at problems, and I promise you they regret it later. You can't throw money at this problem. A lot of people are doing wage studies right now to find out if they're competitive. I highly suggest that. Here is the evidence for you, okay? In the research, it tells us money does not retain and engage employees. However, it does help with recruitment, right? When we're weighing our options. It will help with recruitment, putting your packages together, your benefit packages together, maybe offering a little more money than your competitors. It can help with recruitment, but you can't throw money at this problem for employee engagement. So you might be wondering, well, Kitty, what could work? Well, in the few minutes we have together, I'm going to go over what could work. But many of you are going to say, oh, that's too much work, Kitty. Why can't I just give everybody a 20% pay increase? I will tell you, giving people a pay increase is so much easier than what we're going to dive into. However, what I'm going to share with you is a lot easier than what you might think, okay? Because it's a lot simpler than what people give it credit for. I believe in, the KISS method. You ever heard of the KISS method, right? Keep it simple, superstar, right? We know that's what it means, doesn't it? Okay, but we can keep this simple, but we complicate things. Have you noticed that human beings tend to complicate things? Sometimes we can be our own worst enemy. Yes, that is so true. So what can we do? And boy, you're going to wonder what this means, but just trust me on this, okay? This is the evidence. Psychological safety. A leader's number one job. Leaders have a number one job, and that is to keep their team safe. It's to keep the boots on the ground troops safe. I don't mean physical safety. I mean, although that's a part of it, I mean psychological safety. Who wants to, and Sarah, you can unmute this person. Somebody raise their hand so Sarah can unmute you. What do you think psychological safety means? Anybody? Who wants to take a shot at that?
Brandy.
Good. Randy, let's hear from you.
Thank you, Dr. Brandal. I think psychological safety is feeling that your employer is vested in your personal growth and you're not having to like look over your shoulder to, like cover your, wonder if your job's going to be there, or wonder if they care about you as a human being and not just as a, an employee, I guess.
Good answer. Randy Yates, is that you?
Yes, it is. Hi, Dr.
Chad.
Hello.
Hello.
Oh, now see, there's one of my star performers right there in this call. That's Chad Yates, production manager, one of the only manufacturing production managers who doesn't manage by the numbers. He manages by relationships. I mean, he manages by relationships. Most production managers manage by the numbers, not him. This is why he's so successful. He manages by relationships. He gives people psychological safety. How do I know that? Because I talk to his supervisors and they tell me that Chad makes them feel safe. People can go up to Chad and give him feedback on his leadership skills, even if it's negative. And you know what he says?
Thank you for your
Thank you for your
feedback.
I'm proud of you. I'm so inspired by this leader. He is the epitome of what I'm talking about today. All right. He just is. So psychological safety, it means you're approachable. Can your team members, can the boots on the ground folks approach you and say, hey, Mr. Manager, Miss CEO, I made a mistake. Have you built in room for failure? Because I'm here to tell you that the only place we truly learn anything, the only places that we're able to move from our comfort zone is in the space of failure, making room in your life for failure. I know nobody wants to talk about the F word. I get that. Okay, but it's real. We're human beings. When it comes to psychological safety, do you have a transparent culture? As leaders, are you transparent? And if you're saying, Kitty, well, yeah, I'm transparent, I'm accountable, and by golly, people like me. Right? Okay, here's the thing. How do you know? Seriously, I want you to ask it. This is called self-awareness and emotional intelligence. Okay, how do you know that you know that? We have to be transparent. We have to hold people accountable. People trust people, hold people accountable. Accountability doesn't equate to discipline. Okay, accountability means extreme ownership of ourselves, right? Raising my hand as a manager, as a CEO, as a president when I make a mistake. And putting myself out there and being vulnerable. And I know this is not easy. Okay, I call all of this, I wrap it all up into something called deliberate emotional labor. I know, I bet you'd rather give that 20% pay increase, wouldn't you? I know a lot of people would. I would just talk to a female CEO who just took over her company and she was just promoted. And she said, Kitty, all of these things you talk about, it just seems like it's so much in this relationship building stuff. Can I just give everybody a pay raise? Well, you can, but how long will that happiness from that pay raise last? How many companies on this call right now have bank accounts that go to infinity? Does money run out? The things I'm talking about today never runs out. It's pretty inexpensive. And when I talk about psychological safety, transparency, holding yourself accountable, having those difficult conversations, holding your C-level employees accountable, not allowing that negative contagion within your workforce. I know a lot of people say, Kitty, I just need warm bodies. I've got to get product out the door. I can promise you that the C or D level employee, they might be a warm body, but the thing is they are costing you. Now, it's an invisible cost on the balance sheet. I can't show you the dollars that it's costing you, but it is eating away at your bottom line. And I know that you know that. Let me ask you this question. Do you have somebody in your company right now who is sinking your ship? Don't answer that. It's rhetorical. I want you to think about that, because you can't retain your top talent, even your medium talent, if you have people who are sinking your ship and we don't hold them accountable. That is part of the psychological safety that I was talking about. But we have to be approachable. And, you know, there's so much more to this. Like I said, I have massive, really very detailed workshops built on this. But this psychological safety, it actually equates and builds the foundation of every relationship. Who wants to raise their hand and have Sarah unmute you and answer this question? What is the foundation of every relationship? It's one word. Anybody?
Marie, go ahead.
Marie.
You have to unmute yourself now.
Trust. Okay.
Say it
Trust.
again. Oh my gosh,
Trust.
Marie's got it going on. Marie, you're 100% right. And trust is the foundation to every relationship, not just within your personal life, but within a company too. And you know, Colin Powell talks a lot about this. General Colin Powell, he talked about it when we were at the Pentagon, when I worked for him there, and in his books, read through his books, he'll talk about trust. And he will say, look, when it comes to trust, I mean, if people truly trust you, they will follow you. They will even, I hate to say this because this is kind of like where cult leaders come into play at, but they will even follow you blindly. Why? Because they know you have good intent. You have good intent. You can hold them accountable, give people critical feedback because they trust you and because they have good intent for you. And a lot of that trust comes into our listening as leaders. Oh, we think we listen. We think we listen, but are you truly listening? Here's a simple but powerful rule in listening. Listen with the intent of having your mind changed. I'll say that again. Listen with the intent of having your mind changed. Wouldn't you want somebody to listen to you that way? It's powerful. Powerful listening goes beyond active listening, and that builds this psychological safety, which builds this element of trust. The other thing in psychological safety, there is a derailer for all leaders. It's a derailer. Okay, it throws us off track. It can even have an impact on our legacy. It's a very small word. Can anybody guess what that leadership derailer is? It's a very small word. It has 3 letters. I'll give you that. Who wants to take that on? What do you think that leadership derailer is out of all of the derailers of leaders? Anybody? 3 letters. Those of you who've been through my workshop, you already know this.
Nobody's raising their hand yet.
Alex, you know this. We talked about it the other day.
Is it fair if I answer?
It is fair. I'm gonna let you answer it.
Ego.
You got it, Alex. Ego starts with an E and ends with a go. Right now, I think everybody on this call probably already knows that, but we need to create dialogue around it. Would you feel psychological safety if you worked with somebody with that really dense ego? We have to manage that ego. Now, ego comes from some other place. It comes from another competency that we all have to some extent. Okay, this is my area of expertise, and that is called emotional intelligence. Some of you have been through that program with me. Okay, it's something that can be measured. There's a psychometric assessment that can measure your emotional quotient. I will tell you right now what the research tells us. People who have higher levels of EQ will make people feel psychological safety. Why? Because emotional intelligence, we're able to manage our emotions. I can manage my emotions, and people with higher levels of EQ can help their teams manage their emotions. Think about how important that has been over this past year during something that's happened that's been unprecedented. And I don't know about you, but I didn't get 6 months notice that the pandemic was happening. In a week, teachers were flipping their classrooms. People like Larry said we had to go home and work. Everything was flipping in a week. How did you as a leader manage that? We develop trust. We earn trust from other people by being able to manage our own real estate. Because if I can't manage my real estate, I can't manage anybody else's real estate. All of that goes back to psychological safety. And there's so much under this umbrella of psychological safety that I can't cover today. But it's very big here, I understand, but there's little things that we can do. First of all, listen with the intent of having your mind changed. Also, how many of you heard, and this is not a new term, not a new term. It's called management by walking around. Many of you who've gotten your MBAs, you've heard of this term. It's still in the books today. I have elected officials on my confidential coaching roster, and I have gone into their calendars and put in on Thursday morning at 10 o'clock, management by walking around. Yes, you have to schedule it. Schedule it so that you get up and out of your office and you're simply seen by the boots on the ground folks. You go out and you're seen, you're checking in with people. And here's the thing, when you do management by walking around, don't stop over into Sarah's office and say, oh, Sarah, you know, you're doing a good job. And hey, did you get that report done? Don't become a taskmaster when you're doing management by walking around. Don't do that. Nobody's going to look forward to seeing you. Right? There's not going to be that approachability. Just make yourself visible. Check in. Hey, how you doing? Is there anything we can do for you? Just a very, very short check-in does not need to take a lot of time. And those of you who might have a thought bubble right now and you're thinking, Kitty, but that does equate to dollars. Yes, it does. Coaches, it equates to dollars very well used. If you are spending your time building and enhancing your relationships, okay, you're making an investment. You are building what I call trust capital. So coaches, ask yourself this question. How am I building trust capital with my team? That trust capital is very meaningful, and that will add value to your bottom line. You see, if you have trust capital, you build what I call trust equity. Now you have equity into that relationship. And when you have to make a difficult decision that people don't agree with, you already have that equity. You already have those roots, and people will move with you, even if they don't love the change. So much of this comes back to self-awareness. So many leaders I work with are saying, Kitty, but I do all this. And here's something else that some of my managers say that I work with in companies. They'll say, Kitty, and here's what they'll say, and maybe you've heard it before, when it comes to retention, I've tried everything. Kitty, I have tried everything. Really though, it's a lot. Okay, whenever I hear this, the context cues, I've tried everything, I hear, I know everything. You have to know everything in order to try everything. Leadership is my business. I've been doing this for 30 years and I don't know everything. I am still learning. I have a leadership coach. I'm always trying to learn and grow and develop my skills and learn what the evidence is out there so I can bring it out to you, the people who do the work of the work. There's no way that we could try everything. And when I hear a manager say that, I get worried because now we're lacking in self-awareness. See, coaches, this is something that we have to own, and we've got to break it down within ourselves and wonder and always take that frame of, Kitty, I've tried everything, to Kitty, what else can I try? I call these frames. Frame one is, I've tried everything. Frame two in our brain is, but what else can I do? You see, these frames that I talk about in leadership, frame one, frame two, they develop resiliency. Don't discount resiliency. I call resiliency your bounce back factor, right? What's your bounce back factor? We need to have it. If you sit down and give somebody some critical feedback in the workplace and you don't have resiliency, you can't bounce back from that really tough conversation, you're going to have a difficult time having a relationship with that employee. There's always that emotional residue, right? That residue from a conversation. And as leaders, we have to approach it and break down that residue. Now I have supervisors saying, well, Kitty, if my employees treat me badly and talk to me poorly, then why should I treat them nicely? If they don't trust me, why should I trust them? Well, coaches, another simple but powerful rule, because leaders go first. Whether it's leading your troops through battle or leading them through the business force, leaders go first. If you don't, then how can you show your team the way? Now, I know that I didn't give you like a very easy bullet points here. That's because there's no magical elixir to do any of this. It does take work. Good for the pizza parties, good for the ice cream socials. Love all that stuff. It brings happiness, increases our dopamine. But how are you engaging them? Make sure that when you have change initiatives within your workforce, don't let the managers decide everything. Put focus groups together, right? People love to be involved in change initiatives. You know what research tells us? That employees are changed just by the act of asking them to help. Employees' mindsets are changed just by the act of asking them to participate to help. That comes to us from organizational psychology. That's interesting. Okay, so I don't really know how much time I have left for my program, and I don't want to overstay my welcome. So I can open it up to some questions here. I feel like I really, dumped a lot of information on this amazing, amazing group of leaders. So if there's any questions, please let me know and I can answer those. I also put my information in the chat. If you want to connect with me anytime after this, just let me know and we can definitely connect. Any questions or anything to add for the greater good of the conversation?
I'm going to resend that contact info now, Kitty, so it pops right up for everybody.
Okay, am I overstaying my welcome?
Oh, no, you are just right. And I too just want to give some time for questions or even sharing of what you're experiencing at your company. And just while we wait for anybody to chat in or use the Q&A, I will just say thank you so much, Kitty, because this is such a great reminder to all of us. It is so easy to blame things on the pandemic. It's so easy, not pandemic aside, there are lots of scapegoats for this. And just to have your reminder that it's not easy work, it has to be intentional and it comes from us as leaders. It's great reminders. Really appreciate it and appreciate your time. And I hope our attendees feel the same way. Well, I'm not seeing any questions right now. So again, I'll just say big thank you. We have recorded this and I will include your contact, info in that follow-up email as well. I really appreciate anyone to reach out to Kitty or our office with further questions. Again, this is what we're here for, to help your business perform better, retain employees better, and basically raise the tide of our whole community and our performance here. So we'll leave it at that for today. We do have one more webinar in this series coming up on Friday, the 16th. We'll have a panel discussing the tourism outlook for our area. And we'll send the link to that in the follow-up as well. So if there's no further questions, I hope everyone has a great long weekend and stay in touch. Thank you, everyone.